punctual. And so we are going to get started. So thank you so much for coming. This is, I mean, we have many parents education events at La Scuola. I confess this is always one of my favorite ones. It is it's been such a pleasure and an honor to work with Sherry Glukov for many years at La Scuola. She's been a friend of La Scuola for many, many years. I think when we think about parent education, it's always important for us that we find someone that really understands, our pedagogy and philosophy, and is also an expert and can give great advice to our parents, and I'm a parent too, for all of us to be better parents. And when I had my first conversation with Sherry, I mean, I knew she was the one. She absolutely embraces the high image of the child that we so value at La Scuola, and not everybody does. And so for that, I am so grateful. So Sherry has been a family therapist and a parent educator and consultant for many, many, many years. I can say how many, Sherry, or you can say. And so, and she has led many workshops for public and private schools, and she is incredible in her way of communicating, that we really want to foster resilience in our children, and we want to do that through building healthy relationships between us and them and the school and the children. Um, Thank you, Sherry, for being here again with us and bringing your incredible experience and wisdom and knowledge to La Scuola and all of us.
My pleasure. Um, do we want to give Sally or
Yes.
Fede the scoop?
Yes, the scoop for the evening. So we're recording this session up until the Q&A, and then we'll pause the recording. Feel free to put any questions in the chat, and we'll address them at the end. And if you do put them in the chat, of course, you'll be welcome to unmic and raise your hand with your hand physically or with the icon. And if you do use the chat, if you can preface your question with the grade that your child is in, or children. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to talk for a little while, and then we're going to open it up to QA, because I think a lot of the material about parenting and supporting kids, and our topic is supporting kids parenting in these times. With this pandemic and everything going on and all these changes. Last year when I was speaking at schools, everybody was at a loss, like from the beginning, sort of what do we do about this time and supporting our kids, and what do we do? And now a lot of the concern is, what's this going to mean? What's this going to mean to our kids? We've kind of gotten used to what we're dealing with here, but people are concerned about the big picture. So I want to talk about that tonight, because life is different for sure, but the things that matter are still here. Like holidays might be different for a family, but your kids are still with their family, with as many as they can be. And travel's different, but your values, your boundaries, your leadership as you travel is still the same. School's different, but parents are supporting their kids' learning no matter how it happens or what the circumstances are. Even though parents can't be on campus in the same way or involved in classrooms in the same way, they know that you're connected to their school, to their lives on campus. And their social opportunities are different. But even though that's true, friendships persist, new friends are being made. And there's a lot of opportunities, which I'm going to talk about for your kids to social development, to stay on track. So it's the real issue is how kids are managing changes in settings or circumstances, whether they're hard changes like this pandemic, or a family moving, or a school changing, or whether it's a welcome one, like a new baby born in the family. How do kids deal with change? And how do you forgive disruptions and deprivations that are happening right now? And in the way that other generations have had to deal with going through wars or immigration or whatever they've had to go through to and make adjustments and deal with what the disappointments of that. And the fact is that change is just the way things are. There's just change in our life. Our days are peppered with changes from the minute you get up and you have to change from being in bed to out of bed, your pajamas to your clothes, out the door, from the table to the door, from the door to the car to school, from class to class, from class to yard, yard to class. Kids are dealing with change all the time, small changes, big changes. So one of the things I want to talk about, there's a few things I want to say. The first I want to say is what's going to help our kids with this pandemic and with whatever is to come, whatever changes we face ahead. The thing that's going to fortify them and make them manage is really in your hands. It's how you manage everyday life with your kids. And I don't say this to burden you. I say it to empower you. I say it because really it's, to me, my focus all the time and through this whole pandemic with parents, with teachers, with healthcare practitioners, is that a child's everyday life are the building bricks of their sense of selves, of their character, of their capacities, of their values, their know-how, their social know-how, their self-esteem. It's everyday life. So I'm going to focus on that today. I'm going to focus on managing changes, small ones and big ones. I'm going to talk about supporting your kids' social development in your role with them. And I'm going to talk about communication at home because their communication skills are more important than ever when things pivot and shift. So I want to start off by saying that what I always say, and those of you that have heard me speak have heard me say this, that kids need to know two things to feel good about themselves. One is that they're special and unique and no one else is like them. And the other is to know that they're just like everybody else. The art of parenting is knowing when to give which message. And right now, your kids need to feel seen, to know that they matter, and to be sure. One way to do that, you parents, is something I'm finding there is a deficit of during these COVID times, is parents getting enough one-on-one with their kids. You're doing so much multitasking that it's a really hard thing to do. And also we kind of get lulled into, if we're working from home or people are home more, thinking, oh yeah, we're having plenty of family time, but they're not getting their one-to-one with you enough. And maybe some of you they are, but a lot of people they're not. I can't tell you what a difference it makes when kids get one-on-one time with their parents. It fortifies them. And I think it's because it's that part where they feel seen and like they matter and that they're special. They also need to know that they're just like everybody else. Then the reason they need to know that is it makes them feel connected. And if there's one thing kids want to know, it's that they're just like everybody else. Like they want to be special in the good ways, but they don't want to be so different. And knowing that when they have a feeling that we all are having these feelings, that everyone is facing or struggling with something. One kid told me, I told a kid, he was telling me how hard it was for him, something he was struggling with in school. I said, I know that's hard, but everybody has something that's hard. And he said, yeah, but the thing that I'm dealing with, that's the hardest thing of all. And I said, do you know that everybody feels like the thing that's hard for them is the hardest thing of all? And he laughed, and it really made him happy because his struggles made him feel different. And when he realized that just struggling makes you like everybody else, it relieved him. So with that as a framework, I want to talk about a few things. I want to talk about transitions to start with, because transitions are really a underestimated and underattended to phenomena of life. Like, we just take them for granted. We take for granted that you got to go from here to there, and temperature changes and activities change, and you play and then you clean up, and we just take that for granted. And some kids do it with ease and grace, and for some kids it's really, really hard. So a big job for parents is understanding the difference between can'ts and won'ts. When you've asked your kid 4 times to clean up, 7 times to brush their teeth, when you said, get dressed, I'll see you in a few minutes, you go in there, they haven't moved from the bed. You might want to wonder if that's a can't, if they need a little help to get going. Some kids are good once they get going, but their ignition doesn't work all that well. They can't get started. So, like people who are writing, once they get started, they could get going and write a good essay, but it's hard to get started. A lot of things are that way. So to just pay attention to that, and as much as you can, some of the transitions in life, kids feel like they're mountains to climb. The ones that are automatic don't feel that way. The kids that get in and just click their seatbelt because that's what you always do, they're not even thinking, they just do it. You want to get as many routines over to the habit side of the brain as you can, so that there's not so many things that are experienced as transitions or changes they have to make. When there is a planned transition or change, when you know that in 10 minutes they're going to have to get off a screen and come to dinner, be sure to give them notice. Let them know. And since parents are at the helm of how things go, usually you're the ones that can anticipate that and alert your kids. Always make sure your kids know not just what they're moving from, but what they're moving to. That we're going to we're going to get off the screen at this time, then what's going to happen? A lot of kids dread change because it's from something to seemingly nothing. And if they know what that something is, it tends to go a little better. You want to distinguish the have to transitions from the want tos. Lots of times parents, and frankly, sometimes teachers, don't make it all the way clear that this is a have to, not a want to. And sometimes it's in our phrasing. We in California are especially susceptible. How about if we do this now? Or let's think about moving from here to there. We're just trying to be gracious and maybe cool. And we're not clear because it may make a have to sound like a want to. So a have to is a requirement, like time to get ready for bed now, or you have a dentist appointment after school and the kid says, no, I don't want to go to the dentist. It's not an option. This is our appointment time. But would you like to come have a snack? Maybe that's an offering. And they can turn that down. Do you want to go outside and kick the soccer ball around? That's an invitation. Be sure you're clear about have to and want tos. What's an invitation? What's an alert to a change that's coming? And also, once you've made, this is important, guys, once you've made a transition that happens successfully, you want to demonstrate encouragement to them for having done that, even if it was frankly terrible. Like, let's say you can't get your kid out the door in the morning and it's a big hassle and you have fights and they can't find their shoes and they refuse to get their backpack and then they didn't put their homework in it and you're mad and they're mad and it's all awful. And then you get in the car. What usually happens is once you get in the car, you say, you see, if you were more organized, we wouldn't have mornings like that, or you can't scream like that. Once it's over, we often review the hard stuff. And what I recommend is once it's over, you want to make it a positive thing to have made that transition. So what you really want to do is sort of have the now that we're here feeling. Like you're in the car. Okay, now that we're here, what music should we listen to? Don't go back over the hard part. Move forward so there's that feeling of, oh, it's not so bad once we get in the car, or that's a thing to look forward to. So when your kids, no matter how they grumbled or how hard it was, once they're in the car, at the table, off the screen, is not the time to say, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? You want to let that go. You want to review the transitions in your daily life and consider if they can be better organized. I have parents tell me that getting their kids into their PJs is a fight every night. Think about doing that before they play, or before their screen time, or before your dessert after dinner. Think about the order you do things in, where how often are you having to stop something? They have to stop something they like to do something that is not so much fun. Can you change that up a little bit? Allow enough time when you're moving from one setting to another so the interaction is more neutral and not fraught. I'll often tell parents, put margins around your picking kids up from school time, your bedtime, where you don't feel it's the 11th hour and we have to hurry, and you bring that energy. Your kids respond to your stress and it just doesn't go well. So think about planning so that you have a little bit more margin, and so there's ease in the routine rather than it being fueled by your desperation to meet some deadline. And also, if you know that events that are outside your daily routines are about to happen, give your kids age appropriate warning. If it's an older kid, like a middle school kid, high school kid, you want to give them plenty of warning, on this date at this time, and I'll tell you a couple more times before we get there. If it's a little kid dreading their shot or dreading the dentist or something like that, then wait until day before. It's a need to know kind of thing. Bigger kids need to know with more notice. Smaller kids don't need as much notice. So the reason why I'm making a big deal out of these little transitions, why am I talking about this? Is because it's their experience and their muscle memory of being able to make transitions and manage changes and pivot and deal with have tos as well as want tos is what's going to set them up when big changes come your way. And those big changes are sometimes curveballs. And when you're faced with big changes that are a curveball, that are hard for you, you're not going to be your best selves. And the first thing you want to do is let your kids know that when big things are happening, and I would say this pandemic has been like a 2-year big thing. And just when you think it's down, it changes again, and then it changes again. It's been tough. And I think it's important for parents to let their kids know that, I might blow it. I might stumble in ways that are big or small, but fundamentally, I'm okay and I can take care of you. That's what they want to know. You don't need to be perfect. They just need to know that you're going to regain your balance. You're sturdy enough. And it's also okay to ask for support from your kids. In the beginning of this thing, parents were so overwhelmed with housework because everybody was home and there was more laundry and more mess in the kitchen. And I said, ask the kids, oh, they're all ready. It's so hard for them already, and Zoom. And you know what? It's okay to tell your kids, I can't do all this on my own. I need your help. It empowers them. And it gives them the message, I know you can rise to an occasion, that normally you don't have to do this, but right now you do. We do need your help with this. The other thing is that kids, when in hard times, the way kids cope with hard times, and I'm talking about really hard times, like there's a death of a grandparent or a big change where things are just sad or hard, a loss. Kids like to do something. They want something to do. They want to make a card. They want to be given an assignment. They want to set the table nicely for the people that are coming that are sad that you're hosting or whatever you're doing. Give them, let them help. Um, when something unusual or difficult is going on and you're notifying people or you're including extended family, or you and your kid had a hard encounter or got some news and you have to tell the rest of the family, let your kid, whenever you can and when it's appropriate, let them tell the story. For one, as a little kid said to me, kids like to be the one with the news flash. And that's true. But it's also true that it gives them a kind of importance, and it also helps them integrate and absorb what they're having to deal with. It helps them relate to and accept changes when they are the ones that are kind of mastering it by describing it and telling you about it. Also, these days, people have lost the awareness to keep grown-up conversations with grown-ups. People have just kind of dropped that ball in lots of ways. The boundaries have gotten blurrier because people are working from home more, and so kids are hearing more stuff. But try to remember to keep adult conversations with adults and be thoughtful about what your kids are hearing. You don't want to flood them with things they don't need to know about. When there are changes, you want to tell your kids, this is what you know and this is what you don't know. I am constantly telling kids, this is what I know and this is what I don't know right now. I'm telling everybody, this is what I know and this is what I don't know. I'm frankly used to knowing more than I have been able to know the last couple of years. So it's an adjustment. And most importantly, be sure to take care of yourself during hard times, because whether you're feeling sturdy or not, your kids are turning to you to gauge your stability. And you have zero privacy about that. If you're sturdy, your kids feel it. If you are not sturdy, your kids know it. So you might as well, since you can't fake it, you might as well get authentically sturdy and do what you need to do that, to get there. I want to talk a bit about your kids' social development, even though they're not having the social life they had before. There's few, if any, sleepovers. There's few, if any, birthday parties. Like all of the people are saying, oh my gosh, my kindergarten doesn't even know birthday party. My grandkid, I asked her, she just started kindergarten this year. How was it for you being in kindergarten? She says, it's mostly good. What part wasn't? It hasn't been good. Having to wear shoes all day. She hasn't for the last 2 years had to wear shoes all day. She said, it's really hard to have to wear shoes all day. And I said, I know, do you know, a lot of grownups that are going back to work don't like that they have to wear their pants all day. They didn't have to wear their pants before. She just thought that was hilarious. But you know, there's so many things kids weren't experiencing and now are starting to experience. There's a lot of kids who were desperate that didn't have school last year. You guys are among the few. Your school has been amazing. You are so lucky that they have kept open, that they have managed to keep things safe, that things have gone in so many ways. When I talk to people at your school, it's kind of, you don't even hear about the disruption from the pandemic. I know it's there. I know there's big changes. I know it's worn on everybody, but it's been amazing how it's one of the very few schools in the Bay Area that has kept it floating this well. But the kids who went back to school after a year out, You got the kids who were thrilled to get back with other kids, and then the kids who were terrified because they'd gotten out of the rhythm and they had a lot of anxiety about it. And a lot of people are worried, even though you have your kids in school so consistently, and there's so many activities that still are going on, there's still a lot of concern about how are our kids doing socially. So here's what I want to tell you, that home is the training ground for your kids' social development. What they mainly understand about social development, more than any place else, they're getting from home anyway. So you're even more important now, because when kids have a fuller social life, then it offsets and they learn different things. Oh, some people tell you when they're mad and don't just give you a look like my mother does. You know, they learn different ways of being. But right now, home is their primary social training ground. So your approach to relating with those of you living with a partner, your kids are watching you with your partner. They're watching what that relationship looks like. You are modeling a peer relationship. For some kids, that's the only peers they're really getting to watch in that way, in an ongoing way like that as a pair. So modeling strategies for managing peer relationships is what's going on, and your kids are taking that in. You want to encourage your kids' openness by listening, saying oh or oh well about things, so that they don't feel like it's charged when they tell you something. And that if they ask you exploratory questions, you just give a thoughtful answer, not, well, why do you ask and what happened, and hold your own anxiety in check. You want to give them feedback about their social behaviors at home. You don't want to let them be rude with you. You don't want to let them hold a grudge or not tell you what they're feeling or displace their feeling or take something out on you. The kinds of ways we behave socially that aren't so positive, you want to notice those and address them at home. And you also want to compliment your kids for the ways that they handle things well, that you appreciate, that you know are going to fly out in the world and work for them out in the world. You want to be mindful of the way that you express your ethics, your values about social relationships. You know, we have a lot of demanding our kids to say I'm sorry when they mess something up, but often we have trouble saying I'm sorry. And the person you have the hardest time saying that to is usually a partner. And they have a hard time saying that to you. And that's who your kid is looking at to see what do peers do when they get upset with each other. You want to remember that there's no victims or villains between kids. There's just dynamics. So those of you who have too heavy of a dose of sibling stuff going on need to pay attention that there's a dynamic, but there is not a villain or a victim. Older sibs are telling me that more and more stuff is being put on them and they're being held responsible for the dynamics between them and younger sibs. And I think it's because parents are just so desperate for help that they kind of adultize their older kids, but it's just a dynamic between kids. By the way, saying I'm sorry doesn't matter. Don't get into a power struggle about the word sorry. Apologies matter, but apologies about I need to know that you understand that that was hurtful to me. And I want you to care about that. And I want you to let me know that you're going to try not to do that again, knowing that it's hurtful, that matters to you. And that is the heart of why we say sorry. And when you can force a sorry out of a kid, it's meaningless. To know that they understand the impact they've had and that they regret that and are going to put an effort into making it different, or expressing themselves differently. That's something that matters. I want to talk about communication, because that is the key to everything. How you can deal with all of the things that are going on or anything else that comes up is communication. So first, I want to just give you a frame. One, children's behavior always makes sense if only you knew the rest of the plot. We don't always know what's going on. We don't always know the context. We don't always know that they're tired, they're hungry, they just had a hard thing happen. We don't always know that. We don't always know that they had an idea in mind. When I had a family I was saying where a kid had a tantrum over the French toast the dad made for breakfast, and he felt the kid was ungrateful because he knocked himself out, and the kid was disappointed and had a meltdown. It turned out that the kid had really gotten the idea they were having bagels that day. And I don't know where he got the idea. The dad didn't know where he got the idea. The kid insists that somehow that had gotten across. And he was just primed for bagels. You know what it's like when you think you're going to have something that you're excited about and it's something else. So that the disappointment was big was understandable once you knew. If the dad knew the kid had that in mind, he might have made a bridge from, I know you're expecting bagels, but this is what we're doing today. It would have been a different conversation. So you want to kind of give your kid the benefit of the doubt. There's more to the story here. I wonder what the rest of the story is. Also, another way of thinking of that is to be curious, not furious about your kid's behavior. And it's also really important to distinguish can'ts from won'ts. You really want to be thinking about when your kid doesn't get out of bed, he won't get out of bed, he won't clean up, as opposed to he can't get going. He needs a little scaffolding to get that to happen. You want to be able to distinguish those things. You also want to, this is really important with so much time together families are having. You want to pay attention to the ratio you're having of positive, connected, enjoyable exchanges with your kids in relation to being a taskmaster, correcting them, setting limits. A way to think about that is how much of what you say to your kids makes them want to talk to you, and how much of what you're saying to your kids makes them dread hearing from you. You can't help but have to say some things that they dread, like it's time for bed or it's time to get out of the bath or whatever. But you want the ratio of the positive things to be about 5-1 of the taskmaster, correction, limit setting things. And parents look at me and say, you're nuts. You say I have to scaffold my kids, so I'm doing a lot of that. And I say, yeah, that's right. So then you need to do even more of the connecting things, of the positive things, of the enjoying things, of the storytelling. You also, I'm really concerned about this. You really don't want to use threats. If you do this, then that's going to happen. If you don't get into bed, we won't have time for a story. If you keep behaving like that, you won't get dessert. If you do this, that. If you do this, you're going to have a timeout. Then all parents get appalled. Oh, wait, are you saying no timeout? You mean I have to leave them at the table? What if they do dawdle and there's no time for a story? I'm not saying that you don't set limits or that there aren't effects from their actions. But if then is really a threat, and you end up with a kid that either makes threats or is susceptible to being threatened, you do not want a kid growing up to be either way. So what do you do about that? It's a super simple solution. Instead of if then, you change it to when then. When you're ready for bed, we'll have time for a story. When you get into bed, it'll let us know how much time we have or if we have time for a story. When you can cooperate and use your fork at the table, you can join us for dinner. For right now, you can take a break. I think we need some time for a reset. I'm going to ask you to spend some time in your room. When you're ready to come down and play without hitting your brother, you're welcome to. When then? It takes a little bit of work to get out of the if then habit, but it's really good to have a when then. Okay. Speaking of that, results that make sense to a kid has a neutral quality without having a punitive quality. So when you say you didn't clean up, you didn't do your homework, and you were rude to me before, so you don't get any screen time, that's punitive. When you say there was several responsibilities you were supposed to do tonight that didn't get done, I need you to do those things. And when you do, you can have screen time. If we don't have time for screen time after that tonight, you could have another time. But I need to know that you're able to be responsible before I let you have the responsibility of getting online or of playing games. That's a responsibility too. So tying together, having it make sense that these things, that we do business before pleasure. This happens after this because we have an ethic, business before pleasure, as opposed to this is a punishment or this is a bribe. Think about the values you want to give your kids in the way you frame what you do. I'm not even telling you to do things a lot differently. I'm telling you to frame it in a way that makes sense to your child. So, and it's neutral about cause and effect. Any teachers or school people can tell you that a lot of children don't really understand cause and effect. They're surprised that they were mean to a kid and that kid doesn't want to play with them later. That, like, how did that happen? They don't understand the simplicity of cause and effect. So the last thing I want to say is that if you can support your kids in this time, as many hard things as there are, to be looking at the good things, like how lucky they are that their school has been consistent and they get to go and do that, that there are good people and good situations they get to be in, that if you can support their tolerance, including tolerance for their own challenges and their own missteps. So if they can feel good about themselves and about the world they're in and have heart for others and be able to stand their feelings when things don't go so well, life's going to go well for them. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the can-dos, how to really enjoy and take on the can-dos and how to say, oh, well, about the can't-dos right now. And the language of this pandemic is not for now, not yet, hopefully soon. Keep it hopeful. Okay, let's open it up to questions you guys have about your own kids, your own families, something I can help you with, help it go better, any topic. We're wide open. Your school is lovely that way. They let me talk about what I want and they let you guys raise anything you want that's going to support your parenting.